Hello, welcome to this week's message. I'm Nikki Novo, and I have a exciting, inspirational message for you this week. I am on my property. As you can see, it's kind of a weird day here in Miami. It's kind of cloudy, kind of windy, which is pretty not very typical for March. But hey, we're here. All right, so we're going to talk about being negative and just quitting the habit, right? So it's funny. A lot of people, I realize that think that being negative is actually being realistic, right? Like they're like, a lot of people try to not be positive because they feel like that's so airy fairy and it's not realistic, which is very much untrue, right? So realistic is actually closer to positivity, right? So I have a client the other day who was saying that everybody in her city is negative and toxic, which is really unrealistic, right? It's not. It's definitely more pessimistic. We can't possibly say that everybody in our city is negative. That is not true. So a better way to say that would be like, there's a lot of people that are negative around me, but there's tons of people in the city, and I just have to find the right people to be around, the right positive people, and that is more realistic. Some people want to say that that's being positive, but it's not. It's actually being more realistic. So if this is striking a chord with you, you probably swing to the negative. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how we can get rid of that. So the first step is exactly that: is realizing that you swing to the negative and that that's not working out for you. Because when we swing to the negative, our mind is always going to try to validate its thoughts, right? So whatever it is that we think, if we think that everybody in our city is negative, then we're going to go around the day looking for something to actually validate our thought. We're going to look for proof. Our mind is going to search for proof. If we think everything in our house is purple, our eye is going to look for purple, and it's not going to look for like the pink or the green or the other colors in the house, right? That's just the way it works. So this is really not working out for you, and you have to decide. You have to come to the realization, like, okay, like I actually swing to the negative. All right, that's step number one. And step number two is actually being willing to change, okay? Because we can say like, oh, I wish I was more positive, or I wish I could be this way, but that is not opening ourselves up to change. So in order to open ourselves up to change, we have to be willing. So we need to say things like, I don't know exactly how to do this. I don't even know how to be optimistic, but I'm willing to see my life differently. I'm willing to change. I am willing to do things differently. And when we do that, we open up our own energy to infinite possibilities that didn't exist before, because our energy, if we are saying like, oh, I hope, I wish, I'm not really ready, energetically we have like a door in front of us. But once we say I'm willing and I'm ready and I'm open to new ways of seeing the world, we all of a sudden like open up this energetic door. In addition to that, we have all these spirit guides around us from the spirit world that would love to help us, but we have free will, right? So if we don't allow them in, if we don't say we're willing to change, they can't step in. So that's number two. Now, step number three is probably one of the hardest steps, but it has to do with cleansing, right? So it's like getting rid of anything that's negative around you. And that could be a TV show that you watch. That's like, oh, when you watch it, like all of a sudden, like you have bad dreams, or you feel like a little negative, or you feel like a little afraid. That could be like the news too. A lot of people were getting off Facebook for a while during all that political stuff that was going on earlier in the year. So, and that's a choice to just not be around that toxicity anymore, right? We sometimes even have friends that are toxic. So maybe there's a friend that every time you hang out with him, all he does is gossip and get you really wasted, and you realize that's just like not working for you. So we have to start weeding out those people, unfortunately, or at least keeping our distance and just having them in doses and not in small doses rather than a constant. It's kind of like when you're on a diet. You're not going to have a box of cookies in your house if you're trying to diet, right? So the same thing with toxicity. We're not going to have these. We have to really get rid of the things that where we tend to indulge in negativity. We have to start cleaning house. And step number four is like, okay, now you have this clean house, you have a clean slate, you don't necessarily, you've given yourself the best chance by like really not allowing yourself to be around negative things or negative people, whatever it may be. So this last step is really realizing what your thoughts are and just switching them, right? So again, if you realize, oh, I say that everybody around me is negative, or everybody in my city is negative. Okay, that is not a realistic that is not a realistic belief. So what can we do to make that a little bit more realistic and even swing a little bit to the positive, because it's going to help us in life. It's going to make us feel better, and it's going to bring us new possibilities, right? So realizing what those thoughts are and then switching them, turning them on their head. And listen, it does not have to be, again, airy fairy, super positive. It's just something a little bit more realistic, which is, not as just not as negative. So you can do mantras, or you can just flip them to whatever feels right to you. And again, at first, it's not going to feel comfortable, because change is never really comfortable. And if you've been thinking negative for so long, thinking a little bit more realistic or a little bit more positive is going to feel weird for you, and you're not going to believe it at first. But eventually, like anything, like any new habit, after a few weeks or so of repeating these mantras and saying like, I am supported, or I have tons of money coming in, or whatever it may be, you're ultimately going to start believing it. The same way, like if you were on a diet, after changing your eating habits for about 3 weeks, you're just going to get used to eating the new way, okay? So same thing. So at first it's not going to feel realistic. It's not going to feel right, but you're going to get used to it, and it's going to make your life better. I promise you. Your thoughts are there in your favor. Use them to get what it is that you want in life and to live the life you really want to live. Start with your thoughts. All right. Here's to having a positive and realistic week. I love you much, and I will see you next week.